clergy in Russia was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the Kaliningrad.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that, guys? Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the latest edition of Global Atheist News Review. This is where we have the opinionated people to give their views on the news. And we're starting off with the Manchester representative guy, Otten. We go to South Africa for Tersia. Then it's Tennessee for Dr. Ty Wells, Kentucky for Frank Lovell, and the Birmingham Midlands area for Esther.
Sorry about
that. And Frank's phone goes off at the appropriate moment.
Can I just say that Tersia's dress is beautiful?
It is nice, yes.
It is. Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate
Absolutely.
That. Homemade.
Oh, nice.
Oh, she's a needlewoman. And we've had some apologies because David won't be able to join us this week. And he's busy picking pumpkins, apparently. And Scott can't make it either because he's driving up the coastal road of California. And I've driven that road. It's a lovely drive as long as you look out for landfalls because the cliff keeps dropping down over the road. Anyway, it's enough of that nonsense. Let's get straight into the news. So the item that we've got first of all is about Ukraine, where the Russian soldiers who died in the line of duty have been told that they're going to have all their sins forgiven. The person who told them that is Patriarch Kirill, the Russian Orthodox Church leader, and he has proclaimed in a sermon that he's going to forgive them, and he compares their sacrificial death to that of, listen to this, guess who? Jesus. So react to that, guys. What do you think?
I think we can just start forgiving people for any and everything. So Dr. Ty, I forgive you for not contacting me. John, I forgive you for
what have I done?
Well, I've got to try and think of something you've done.
Well, I mean,
I think
You're kind of far away to contact. I can't even reach you from here.
I've got to forgive Tersia for not making me my own dress. It's, we just forgive people willy-nilly. Anybody can just.
I'll forgive you for not coming to visit me. I'll do that. Right. Yeah. Can I just say I have a slightly different take on this whole thing of pardoning somebody who's died. Believing that when we die we are dead. This forgiveness business doesn't really help the person who died. And frankly, while it's my thoughts would the people who need anything from the church would be the relatives and the friends of the people who died. And I find this preoccupation with the dead person who is no longer experiencing anything. I find that actually quite sickening, because you can forgive that dead person. You can be assured that you can assure the relatives that he's now in heaven and he's dancing with virgins in the case of Muslims, or I don't know if Russian Orthodox men get virgins in heaven, but that does absolutely nothing to first address the waste of human life, and secondly address the pain and loss of the people who stay behind. And I wonder that people actually still cling to this as any sort of comfort. it doesn't matter whether you forgive my relative of whatever sins you think he did. He's no longer in my life. He's gone.
Mm.
And so, yeah, it just shows to me the absurdity of this belief in an afterlife.
Does that mean, Tersia, that you're not going to forgive my ancestors for colonizing you?
Well, it's not only that I don't forgive them; it's that I blame them. Your ancestors don't need any forgiveness. They were as victims of the times in which they lived as my ancestors.
But I mean, isn't this standard sort of Christian doctrine that you compare people who are giving up their lives to Jesus, who gave up his life as a sacrifice, and it's promoting these poor soldiers who have been sent out as cattle fodder to be gunned down,
Cannon.
for nothing.
Cannon
Jesus,
fodder.
Yeah. Very sad.
To add to what Guy was saying, the story of Jesus is a parable of needless human sacrifice.
Yeah.
So it's not even absurd for me to make that analogy. It seems absolutely appropriate to apply that to Russian soldiers being indoctrinated about the demon that is Ukrainians and going out to die, taking land that's right next to them that, doesn't belong to them. It just seems completely on the mark and on the brand appropriate to Christianity.
Yep.
So I gather you're not going to forgive my ancestors for carting you as a slave across the Atlantic. Anyway, what this does for us is it puts Patriarch Kirill, firmly in the same bed as Putin. He's aligned the whole Church of Russia with the state of Russia.
Yeah. Well, that's what you expect in a totalitarian regime.
Yeah, I guess so.
In the West, we've got beyond that now, and it's quite interesting to see various churches taking independent sort of lines on.
Yes.
The Catholic Church was helpful to the Nazis too, in their effort to purge Europe of Jews. So, very biblical behavior.
Yeah, but that was a totalitarian regime.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, Catholicism is essentially totalitarian as well.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that the Catholic Church, I think, was the first. The Catholic Church is probably the longest reigning totalitarian government, if you want to see it, the longest continuous, in my opinion.
You may be right. So moving from Christian totalitarianism to Iran, where, as you know, there's a lot of protesting going on, thanks to the death of that very sad death of that young lady who didn't wear her hijab correctly. What's her name? Marzi Amini. And the protests have spread to the universities in Tehran, and the Iranian police have been trying to stifle these. They've trapped students in a car park. The students are seen running away with gunshots being heard. There's chants of death to Khomeini going on. And one protester was videoed being carted away with his head wrapped in clothing, or her head probably, because it's a women's protest, this one. And so a lot of, I think there's about 170 been shot by now.
Wow.
So comment on that, please.
It's very heartbreaking to see the plight of women in some parts of the world, and how religion, enforces these rules. It's the women who suffer in most cases. It's because the last time I checked, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, do the moral police go after men as well? Do they check their dressing? Is that
Well,
something
men
There
that
is
don't,
happens?
there is no
don't
code of
have,
fire for men.
men don't have rules to comply to. Imagine how that would go down in Iran or any Islamic
Right.
country if boys of about from about the age of 8 onwards were required to wear some ridiculous headgear like a top hat. Imagine how that would be received.
Well, I think actually
Imagine.
under the Taliban, there are rules about hairstyles
Oh
And
yes,
beards.
beards.
They must have
Yeah.
beards. A
yes,
man must have a beard.
yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. The what worries me is what's going to happen after this, because how what's the outcome going to be, and will there be any change, and what will happen to these women in the long term, the ones who have been jailed, the ones, and something that concerns me, that I think we don't spend enough attention to, maybe I'm in a very dark mood, but the loss, if somebody dies, that's very, very bad. But I wonder how much time is spent on thinking about the people who survive these violent repressions, people who are badly injured, who can't go to hospital, who can't get proper medical care, and obviously the trauma that they have to live with for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
And the consequences of what's happening in Iran at the moment will be long lasting. It's not going to be just even if the protests are suppressed and nothing changes, those women who the people who lived through such violence, it leaves permanent scars on your
Yes.
on your body and on your mind.
Yes.
and 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 I don't know how much is done to address that.
Yes.
You mean
And
done by the government? Done by the government? That's your question.
none by the government. None by the
No.
government.
That's what
No,
I
it won't.
figured. Right.
No. There's going to be a big job for what's that organization? Recovering from Religion, isn't there?
Yeah.
In Iran, an enormous need for people to counsel those suffering from religiously inflicted PTSD.
I mean, when your government's priority is to set up a police dedicated to monitor people's outward appearance, to me, I think that's just, it concerns me, because
Too far.
I I would like to know, what is the economy like? What is the Iranian economy, right? I'm sure this money that's been put into this police system, can be used for other things, can be put into the healthcare system. Why
Yes.
would the government bother
Yes.
itself with monitoring its citizens' appearances?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you ask about the economy in Iran right now. It's tanking.
I bet it is.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is, this has gone global. So in Los Angeles, for example, in the West Hollywood Park community, a vigil was held to honor Mahsa Amini, the dead woman, and the Iranian American Women Foundation. There's a big Iranian community in that part of the world, held a candlelight vigil. The West Hollywood mayor was there, so was the Beverly Hills mayor, and council members spoke at the event. They said, or one of them said, we wanted to be here to have a voice for those women who are still in Iran, fighting for their rights, and nobody hears them. We want to be their voice. How about that?
I mean, what we see in Iran is every few years we see movements of revolt against the totalitarian structures, and every time so far they've been cruelly repressed.
Yes.
And it's very sad, but one day hopefully that rotten sort of regime will collapse. But I'm not sure whether we're there yet. It's difficult to know how far gone it is.
Yes.
You know.
But this is all on top of the regime. You've also got the religion as well. So it's two
Yes.
different things mixed together. So even if you do get rid of the regime, what about the religion?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes. There's no
you've got
separation of state and faith there.
exactly.
If the regime can't exist without the religion, and the religion can't exist without the regime, and that's part of the problem, that the two have become so inseparably intertwined, and they that's what makes it such a toxic situation, and that's this intertwinement between political regimes and religion it's been with us for centuries. I mean, if you look at what happened all over the world since Catholic Church took over, in fact, because if I do a brief flyover of, and if my knowledge of history is not too rusty or rudimentary, even in ancient Greece, in ancient Rome, even the Romans were way more tolerant of other faiths and other religions than the Christian religion ever was, since it became the dominant religion. And
until Constantine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Until Constantine made Christianity the state religion.
Yes.
And all other religions took very gladly to that pattern, because if you look at Islam, there was a time when Islam was a religion of enlightenment, and when Christians and Muslims lived peaceably in the same spaces, sharing space, and the Jews have always suffered, I have to say, that since Christian times as well, and we have to break the bond between state, religion, and state, and only once that has happened can one begin to successfully address religion. Because I mean, in Iran, you can't even criticize the religion. You can't criticize. You can't criticize clerics. You can't criticize. You get thought crimes, and that's it. That needs to be addressed, and the bonds need to be broken between religion and government.
Well, even in countries where, I'm going to come to you, Frank, because of this, even in countries where ostensibly there is secularism, there is separation of state and government, state and religion, the religious are trying to get back in, aren't they? Tell us about it, Frank.
Well, that's certainly happening here. There's huge efforts being made. Trumpism, unfortunately, is aiding and abetting that process of turning religion into government management.
Yeah.
But in the case of Persia, I mean, the really heartbreaking thing of this is that Persia used to be the intellectual center of the universe.
Yep.
You know, they gave us real mathematics, for example.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know, and yet look how far that's gone and changed. And
I want to say something that I wanted to say. I don't know if anybody watched our program last night with Peter Rue about climate change, but he said something about the Christian church in South Africa, there being many Christians who were actually opposed to apartheid, and he equated that to many Christians who were against slavery in America and in Europe, in England. And what I wanted to say was that the problem with religion is that those who oppose suppression and oppression, they do that despite their religious beliefs, not because of their religious beliefs. And I think that is something that we need to address again and again and again, when people say that, yes, but Christians have done many good things, and yes, there are many Islamic charities and they do very good things. It is my opinion that they do those things because they are actually human and they are humanist. They don't do that because of their religion. They do that despite their religious beliefs.
Yeah, they're toning down their religion by their nature, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Iran's president, a guy called Ebrahim Raisi, he's warned that he will not accept chaos, and he's going to crack down on the protests. I think today's news is that he's not having much success because they even hijacked their TV station and they got a message out. But he says that he's not going to allow people to disturb the peace of society. Meanwhile, his very own security forces arrested a woman and her friend, another woman, who were eating in a Tehran restaurant without headscarves. Can you imagine that? You're having a meal with your friend, not wearing a headscarf, not wearing a. Why would you wear a headscarf indoors?
They were clearly doing that as a
protest.
They knew it was against the law to do it that way, and they're very brave.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's the punishment? What's the punishment for these people who are arrested for these reasons? What's the punishment?
I don't know whether we've got the punishment yet.
I'm sure the little I investigate, I'm sure they said they send them off to this Reformation kind of school where they go and learn how to dress and all these things. So
that would be the most benign outcome, I suspect.
Yes, I'm not sure whether that happens in Tehran or in Iran. It may be more something that happens in other countries because they have been transferred to Ward 209 of Evin prison, which is a notoriously brutal facility where the regime incarcerates political dissidents.
And I'm not going to put this, but I believe there's a lot of sexual assault that occurs in these positions too, because you have very vulnerable women in situations where they can't report. They're already vilified by a community, and it puts them in immaculately terrible positions to be in when they need to, call for help.
Ty, it's worse than that. I was watching some sort of documentary. I don't remember what it was in this past week, and the Islamic law prohibits the execution of virgins because obviously virgins are useful, and the way to solve this problem is to make sure that a woman is no longer a virgin. Therefore, the sexual assault is almost it's worse than we think it is, because once a woman has been sexually assaulted, she can be executed.
God.
Because she's no longer a virgin. So, because virgins are obviously useful, so virgins can't be executed. So
Frank, I heard your gasp of horror.
Yeah. That is how shocking it is. That is how shocking it is.
Yes,
so what are the chances? Sorry, Guy, you carry on.
Sorry, I was just saying that I've read about that same thing happening.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's not so likely to happen with these cases. I would have thought, unless they're charged with, being an enemy of God or something like that. That's when, and of course, that's a possibility that they will escalate and introduce those kind of charges.
Yeah.
But the problem is that contributes to the sexual assault, because a woman who is no longer a virgin is free game, and she can, and it just makes it so bad that these women are at the mercy of the regime, regardless. There's what do you do? So yeah, it just my blood runs cold.
Well, this particular prison is exclusively designated for prisoners managed by Iran's intelligence ministry.
That'd be like the Inquisition managers of Catholicism.
Yeah.
Really, there's
What's the good news?
how intelligent is this ministry?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the good news, John? Can we hear some good news,
Yeah, we
please?
need some good
I
news.
can. Yes, I've got some good news lined up, because despite all this oppression, even high school girls are protesting at school on video, and they're doing it without hijabs. They're not facing the camera. They don't want their faces to be recognized. So, but they've got lovely long hair down to their waist that's visible on the video, and they're singing a song that has been written. Is based on the tweets that were published following Mahsa Amini's protest, and it mentions the reasons for the uprising. So the song is called For, or Because, and there's a whole list of reasons for their grievances, if you like, that, well, I'll play it to you. It's well, and listen to, because the artist who has been arrested gets more passionate later on. So listen to this.
برای توی کوچه رقصیدن، برای ترسیدن به وقت بوسیدن، برای خواهرم، خواهرت، خواهرامون، برای تغییر مسواک پوسیدن، برای شرمندگی، برای بیپولی، برای حسرت یک زندگی معمولی، برای کودک زباله‌گرد و آرزوهاش، برای این اقتصاد دستوری، برای این هوای آلوده، برای ولیعصر و درختای فرسوده، برای پیروز و احتمال انقراضش، برای سگهای بیگناه ممنوعه، برای گریه های بیوقفه، برای تصویر تکرار این لحظه، برای چهره ای که میخنده، برای دانش آموزا، برای آینده، برای این بهشت اجباری، برای نخبه های زندانی، برای کودکان افغانی، برای این همه برای غیر تکراری، برای این همه شعارهای تو خالی، برای آوار خونه های پوشالی، برای احساس آرامش، برای خورشید پس از شبای طولانی.
There you go.
Wow, that was powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very
Music is being enlisted in the cause of the Iranian protest. That's a guy called Siavash Ardalan, who you've just seen, and unfortunately he is already arrested.
Yeah,
So
I was about to...
That's good news or bad news. It's got a sting in the tail, hasn't it? But it shows how the message is being delivered. Ty?
No, I was about to say it's most likely he's arrested by now.
Yeah, he has.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we can now leave Iran and go to another country that loves to be in our how religion has impacted humanity this last week news. It's Palestine, where at least 100 Palestinians have been killed in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem so far this year. And that is something of a new record, a rather sick record. It was reached as an 18-year-old man was shot dead on Saturday when Israeli forces fired an anti-tank missile at a house. Can you imagine that?
No, we don't know the reason why they did that. I mean,
there was allegedly a gunman who was wanted in that house at the time. The house was in a place called Jenin, and I just I'm lost for words. Why is this still going on after 2,000 years?
Shame.
Yeah.
Well, and that wouldn't have happened 2 years ago or 4 years ago, even
Mm.
though there were other things going on.
Mm.
I mean, there's got to be more to the story.
Yeah.
But if there was, you'd think the Israelis would be telling it, and so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mm.
It's a real problem. How do you live side by side with people who are committed to drive you into the sea and all your
Yeah.
people? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a brutal situation, unpleasant for both sides.
Yeah. And it doesn't escape attention that is the origin of religion. That area was where this stuff started. All the Abrahamic religions began in what is now Israel.
It's kind of like evolution. Start out with one or two simple little critters,
Yeah.
and now we've got a huge zoo. 99% of all species that ever lived are extinct. Yet we've
Yeah.
got 4 million plus different
Yeah.
species.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the problem there isn't the problem that I mean, we see that the Palestinians are being oppressed, but also we understand what motivates the Israeli government. They've got to survive. But why did they have to use an anti-tank weapon
Well,
against a house?
exactly.
Could
Yes.
they not have found some more, moderate way of dealing with the problem?
Yeah,
Yes.
they used to. That's what I say. Something's happening in the government. It has
Yes.
to be to explain. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. Other,
What was wrong with tear gas? Eh?
exactly.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about the Jewish religion, I know that most of us think that, it's a more calm religion than some, because a lot of Jews, like David, who was unable to be here tonight, are secular. They acknowledge their Jewishness by their heritage, but they don't use the doctrine, as it were, in their daily life. However, there's a Jewish sect. It's called Lev Tahor, and it's known for extremist practices and imposing a strict regime on its followers that it advocates child marriage. It inflicts harsh punishments even for minor transgressions and requires women and girls as young as 3 years old to completely cover up with robes. Now, a branch of this sect exists in Mexico, and they were raided by police and I think they were surrounded in their facility, whatever it was, but they managed to get out and they fled. So there's footage showing men, women and children streaming out of the site, and they had been trapped there by this raid of the police because 2 members were arrested on suspicion of human trafficking and serious sexual offences. So that's the seedy end of the Jewish religion for you.
Well, actually, John, I'm sorry to be, I don't know if I'm being optimistic or pessimistic, but you just have to look at the book by A.J. Jacobs, The Year of Living Biblically. I've posted a link in the chat.
Okay.
That sect sounds to me as if the only problem with them is that they adhere really, really strictly to the biblical or the
The Torah.
to the Torah and the whatever the other one is
Talmud.
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 That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So because I've actually been reading the Bible quite a lot recently, and if you look at the Old Testament, I mean, I'm busy with a little project called Biblical Curses, And these are straight from the Talmud. It's in the old Christian Old Testament. And you have to get to the point where you address the fact that the problem is the text.
Yes.
And that brings me back to one of my many times previously I've stated this, but moderates enable extremists.
Yes.
And as long as there's a reverence for the text as anything more than a work of literature, then we will be stuck with these types of things. And that's because that's what the Bible prescribes. Exactly
Absolutely.
what's being done. And if you have a text that says stone children if they are disobedient, the problem is the text. The problem is not the people adhere to the text.
No. Yes, they're getting their justification from the text. Yep.
Well, yes. The problem is that people, instead of accepting responsibility to make sensible and rational moral decisions based on their own their own compassion and sympathy, they're looking back to some ancient prescriptions which just don't apply and shouldn't apply and are just cruel.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Before we were civilized. Yes.
And that does.
Sorry, go ahead.
That does also extend to political propaganda too. When you're like raised in a country and you're retold every day that you got to swear allegiance to a flag, or that your country's number one, or that everybody else is a terrorist, you can be a kid and easily indoctrinate yourself just due to political propaganda as well.
Yeah.
So the tactics that religion are using are not monopolized by religion. We need to be aware that this is used by everything from car commercials down to, what country you live in.
But the problem is worse than just harking back to an ancient religion and an ancient text, because you and I can go onto Twitter or Facebook or YouTube right now, and we will see many modern apologists of very high standing proclaiming without any doubt that that our morality is based in our belief of God, or at least our morality comes from God.
Yes.
And so how can you blame people if they are taught by apologists and pastors, respectful people, good people, that you cannot be moral if you don't believe in God?
Absolutely.
How can you blame them for not saying, well, then I have to be evil and bad, and the source of my morality has to be some higher being? And how does that higher being communicate with me? Through a text.
I wish people knew it was all nonsense. Anyway, I'm sorry about this. I'm going to move us on because the time is progressing. So Afghanistan likes to pop up in the news as much as possible. And I've got an echo for some reason. Why is that? There's a bombing, I think a suicide bombing atrocity that took place in Kabul, and the target was an education center, and 35 students were killed, most of them female, and 80 were wounded.
It's so sad, so sad. Yeah.
So sad.
I mean, the thing is, we're sort of so aware of the need and the importance of educating women and having equality between men and women, that it just seems incredible that this sort of thing still happens. And isn't there something we can do? That's how I feel sometimes. You're frustrated that this is going on.
Guy, you voicing my sentiments. I've often, I'm just thinking, isn't there something we can do? And then that's why I started the nonprofit that I run, and I sometimes feel despondent because what can I do about what's happening in Afghanistan? But it does make one feel desperate and sort of helpless as well. But then I suppose we have to take solace in that just doing what we are doing right now is what we can do. And then there are people like Guy. I mean, you're very involved, and try to focus on the individual. That when you come across, because one can be an activist only in one's immediate surrounding, but I'm very glad that you echo that. What can we do? Because I do think that we need to ask that question more often. What can we do to and do more? We have to do more. I don't know what and how, but I do feel we have to do more.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to put you through it even more now, because the next item is really distressing. This took place in India, and a 16-year-old Hindu girl, Ankita Kumari, rejected a Muslim man's advances. So what did he do? He crept up on her bedroom at night. She was asleep, opened the window, poured petrol all over her, and as she woke up, knowing that she was wet, he threw a match. That is, I couldn't show the video in the news. It was too horrifying, because she fought for her life in a hospital, during which she narrated her ordeal in a video and then succumbed to her injuries. It's what they call love jihad.
What goes through somebody's mind when he does that?
Now, what will happen to that guy who did that? Anything?
He's been identified and arrested with an accomplice. That's as far as we've got. He's a guy called Shahrukh Hussain, and his accomplice is called Naeem Khan.
It's just so heartbreaking to hear these things. And I think one thing has been common through most of the stories today. It's been women at the end of all these evil acts and evil atrocities, and my heart breaks. My heart breaks. And Tersia was asking, what can we do? I think that's the question we need to keep asking. What can we do?
Well, I'm sorry I had to bring that to the panel. However, I do have some better news.
Oh,
because,
thank you.
Yes, Californian Governor Gavin Newsom has signed 13 new abortion and reproductive health bills into law, strengthening California's already robust allowances for ending the life of a fetus. Now, they use the word baby, but I disagree. I don't think you've got a baby until they're born. What you've got until that moment is a fetus, or at the very beginning, an embryo. But I'm a retired biology teacher and a stickler for correct usage of words. Anyway, what he's done is he's codified key parts that it looks as though he's trying to make California a national abortion hub, welcoming people traveling there to get their abortion. And of course, this has annoyed the pro-life advocates, who are calling that move horrendous. And they've said, all year we've been fighting these bills to make people understand what is coming down the pike. Governor Newsom really wants to make California a sanctuary for the nation's abortions. Well, good luck to him. That's my opinion.
I
Finally, Oh, okay. Take it away.
Now, I saw a brilliant meme. Somebody had posted a picture of a beautiful baby about a week old, and the mother said, "This is baby Mary," or I don't recall the name, not important. She comes from eggs that were frozen 27 years ago,
Yeah.
and she was fertilized with this egg that she had frozen 27 years ago. And then she said, the egg didn't die after being frozen for 27 years. Baby Mary would die if she were to be frozen. That's the difference between an embryo and a baby. It's not the same.
Absolutely. The pro-lifers would say that frozen embryo had been a baby for the last 27 years.
Yeah. But I found that such a good tool to teach the difference, because it's funny how visceral the abortion issue is, because we have these emotional responses.
And because of the abuse of language. You don't have a baby until they've been born. Let's face it, a small percentage of young infants are born dead. So you can't be sure until they're born.
Well, and the other thing is that nature is the great aborter.
Absolutely.
Way more failures to deliver that are natural cause than abortions.
Absolutely. So if you're a believer in a God, he done it. Finally, you'll be pleased to hear that Trump-backed Pennsylvania Republican gubernatorial candidate Doug Mastriano, he's held a rally, and he told a wildly enthusiastic crowd that after he is elected, he will immediately ban critical race theory, remove all the pornographic books, he means biology books, and eliminate pole dancing from Pennsylvania's elementary schools. Now,
pole dancing from elementary schools? That sounds like so much fun.
So it's news to me that they do pole dancing.
But they don't. There's no evidence. There's no evidence that any of those things exist in Pennsylvania's school system. But that didn't stop him from making these statements and getting the enthusiasm of his crowd.
I'm just very glad that in my days as a primary school teacher, we didn't have to do any pole dancing, because I would have been useless.
I had trouble with just the monkey bars.
Me too.
Well, I guess the thing with I'm not very optimistic, because knowing politicians, it's one thing to make promises, it's another thing to deliver. Most politicians would get to office and they just go back on everything they've said. So that's something to watch out for, I guess.
It's going to be easy for him to ban something that doesn't happen, though.
Well,
Oh my goodness. You chaps those who want to stay behind after we stop recording, I have an interesting story to tell, but
Tersia will host the after show party. I'm going to go and get myself another beer. But guys, I think you've been wonderful. Thank you very much. Take the rest of the week off.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Several clergy.
Was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the Kaliningrad.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that?